Hi, and welcome to a Small, Medium at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Heisen, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all of you listeners for sticking by us as we show you a 114th episode today with a returning special guest who we've had on before. We enjoyed so much, and she's back here to talk today about her new book. So let me tell you a little bit about Joanna Kern. Joanna comes here today from Canada, and we're very excited to have this show with her. Joanna Kern is an award winning author, filmmaker, and independent researcher whose work explores the relationship between physics, consciousness, and systems of perception. She is the creator of The Theory of All, the physics and mathematics of frequencies, a framework that examines how frequency structures shape matter, awareness, and human experience, including emerging questions around human AI interaction. Her research draws on decades of interdisciplinary study, combining observational inquiry with analytical modeling to investigate how perception, emotion, and cognition organize into coherent systems. Alongside her research and creative work, Joanna Kern is the founder of the Humans of Planet Earth Association, or HOPE, a nonprofit organization dedicated to education, research, and creative development. Through HOPE, she supports initiatives that foster learning, innovation, and personal growth across diverse communities. Let's welcome Joanna here today. Hi, Joanna.
Oh, hello, and hello to your wonderful viewers. I am so happy to be here again. This is a fantastic podcast, and wonderful people are your guests.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here today. I do have to mention to our listeners that when we had your show here some time ago, that we had over 20,000 views. So let's
Mm.
see what will happen here with our next show. It was our biggest, most viewed show. So we're looking forward to more exposure for you. So let me begin with, how did you come to write this theory and book, and why? What came about, and how long ago? Is this something you've been thinking about for years, or is this a new thing that you just birthed through recently?
Well, over many years, I noticed that different fields like physics, psychology, neuroscience, or consciousness research often were describing similar phenomena, but in completely different languages. Physicists talk about waves, resonance, and oscillating fields. Neuroscientists talk about brain rhythms and
Hmm.
synchronization between regions. Psychologists talk about attention or emotional states, which often line up with measurable changes in neural activity. Different vocabularies, same underlying structure,
Hmm.
patterned vibration. And you see the same logic in technology too. When a phone connects to a wireless network, it has to lock into the right frequency band. When it does, the signal stabilizes. When it doesn't, the connection drops. And so frequency kept showing up as something fundamental across nature, mind, and machines. Frequency is measurable. It is universal and central to many areas of science. However, most models treat frequency as a way to describe something, while in this theory, frequency isn't describing the system, frequency is the system. It is part of how reality is organized. The writing process itself took many years, and I filled many fat notebooks by hand. Eventually, I incorporated those notes in the manuscript, which is today the theory of all. Um, my goal was to create a grounded, structural bridge, a framework that could actually be tested, something
Hmm.
that lets us talk about consciousness or perception without reducing everything to biology alone or drifting into untestable belief. Um, a model that scientists and engineers can interrogate, measure, and refine.
I have to say, I've had quite a few guests where frequencies is what they're all talking about. And I
Mm.
even invested in one of my guests and bought one of his frequency units
Uh-huh.
called a WISH unit, a World Integrated Space Harmonizer, that
Mm.
you plug in and it's supposed to affect the frequency around you in the room where you are. So
Mm.
it seems that there's a lot of technology going on and people are constructing things about frequencies. So I think you're on the right path about discussing this because I think it's very present right now. So let
Mm.
me ask you, when you used numbers and equations throughout the theory, how did you arrive at the mathematics of these frequencies?
Mm. The mathematics of frequencies also emerge out of long-term observation. I kept saying the dynamics in very different systems, threshold, pulsation, progression, collapse, restabilization, and those patterns show up in physical systems, biological regulation, cognitive processes, and engineered oscillators. And eventually I realized I needed a formal language, a
Mhm.
translation tool. The purpose of these mathematics is to encode relationships between frequencies, to describe how patterns behave over time. And I use mathematics the way engineering does, to model systems and processes. But here, the equations aren't static descriptions, they are sequences. And order matters. A simple analogy is music. You see, if we play the same notes in a different order, we don't get the same melody. The same things happen in these models. The equations can resolve into hertz, understood not just as speed, but as rhythm, stability, threshold behavior. And I wanted a framework precise enough to be tested, modeled, refined, or rejected. The mathematics of frequencies are operational, not symbolic. All the numbers are operational.
Wow. I have to say, I never thought about time until I was asked to do precognitive remote viewing.
Mm.
And it started to occur to me that how could I go out into the future to see something that's going to happen that hasn't happened yet and write it down now? And that's when I realized that time was not like I think, and that time isn't just a linear thing, because it seems like I'm able to go to the past, the future, or the present all in the same moment or
Mhm.
place. So that means time can't be what I've thought of it as. So it's just something that I've learned in the last recent years that time is not what I think. So I find it very interesting to be, like some people think, oh no, time is just what's happening right this minute. Well, if it's happening right this minute, how can you reach information from the past and the future, especially if it hasn't happened yet? So anyway, time is a very interesting thing for you to be studying here. So when you say the mathematics are operational, not symbolic, what do you mean by that?
Traditionally, numbers function as symbols, as labels pointing to something else, to elephants, to apples, etc. In this framework, they act more like instructions than labels. They function as frequency codes. That means the mathematics isn't describing frequency from the outside, it is shaping the behavior being modeled. We can think of it like a recipe. A recipe isn't just a description of a meal. It's an ordered set of steps. If we keep the ingredients but change the order, we get a completely different result. That's what
Mhm.
operational means here. Even the brackets matter. Instead of being just arithmetic tools, they act like timing cues, locking relationships into alignment. So each equation is an ordered sequence. If we rearrange it, we change what the system actually does. In short, the equations don't point to frequency, they operate within frequency. Recently, I developed a model that demonstrates how this mathematics forms. It is a reproducible calculation system with consistent results under its own
Mhm.
rules, and it can be applied repeatedly. And that was crucial to me because if something cannot be recalculated, tested, or explored by others, then it doesn't belong in science. So the mathematical correspondence resonance model I have developed is useful as formal resonance mapping system, a way to explore order-dependent interactions, basically a method to study path-conditioned outcomes without quantum assumptions.
Mhm. Joanna, this work spans so many areas. So I thought today that we could just focus on chapter 3, the conceptual constructs of matter and time. In
Mhm.
this chapter, when you say that time is a perceptual construct rather than an external sequence, what does that actually mean in practical terms?
Yeah. In everyday life, time feels solid and external. Clocks tick, calendars
Hmm.
move, and it seems like we travel along a fixed timeline. But what I began to notice, and what chapter 3 indeed formalizes, is that our experience of time shifts depending on how perception is organized. A few minutes can feel endless under stress. Hours can vanish when we are deeply engaged. That isn't because the clock changed. It's because perception changed. In the model, time emerges from the interaction of three elements: memory, intention, and awareness. Memory gives us a sense of past. Intention gives us a sense of future. Awareness gives us the present moment where experience actually happens. Those three interact continuously, and that interaction produces the feeling of a flowing timeline. So when I say time is a perceptual construct, I'm not dismissing clocks or physics. I'm pointing to the inner mechanics, the frequency-based processes inside perception that make time feel real and continuous.
And very, I'm just, I'm very impressed with your brilliance. uh, can you,
It's
so,
just dedication and 3 decades of studying. I'm not sure it has anything to do with brilliance, just with good observation, but let's continue. Thank you.
okay. So, um, can you explain, you talk about something called the spiral of perception.
Yes.
Can you explain what the spiral of perception is and why you use a spiral, which in your book there are drawings so people can see these, rather than a straight line to describe time? We all think of time as linear like this, but you're describing it as in a spiral.
Yes. A straight line doesn't really match how perception really behaves. We picture time as linear because, again, of clocks and calendars.
Hmm.
But internally, our experience doesn't unfold in a straight line. Awareness doesn't just move forward and leave everything behind. Awareness revisits, integrates, returns to similar themes and questions, but never from exactly the same position. And that is already spiral behavior. And the spiral of perception is a model that captures this process. Each moment of awareness doesn't erase the previous one, it simply folds it inward as a memory. At the same time, intention pulls perception forward toward what's next. Every moment contains two movements at once: an inward movement, embedding our experience, and an outward movement, creating new possibility. And that is essential. If our perception was moving only forward, our experience would fragment, nothing would be retained. And if our perception only moved inward, our experience would stagnate, nothing new can happen. The spiral allows both continuity and change to exist together.
Mhm. Very interesting. I was wondering about manifestation in relationship to the like, is manifestation part of this awareness concept ideas? Is that the thing that brings us forth to manifestation? So I find manifestation like things that occur that get manifested, and I wonder how does that happen? But yet it does. And I know that we manifest things, but I'm not sure the mathematical equation or exactly how we get to the manifesting part. But it makes me think about manifestation when we talk about the spiral of perception. Is
Mhm.
manifestation a part of that?
Is manifestation part of that?
Yeah, like,
You know what? Let's take it step by step.
okay.
Let's take it step by step because what you're saying is extremely important questions, and we'll get to that. But
Okay.
before we do, let's talk about consciousness. Let's talk about consciousness and what I called in the theory consciousness module. We start
Yes.
with that perhaps. So that will give us the sort of the
Okay.
okay.
So if you could introduce, if you could explain about the conscious module and how is that different from consciousness that's usually discussed?
Okay, many approaches either reduce consciousness entirely to biology or
Hmm.
treat it as something vague and difficult to measure. And the consciousness module is meant to be neither. It models how awareness actually operates as a localized coherent system. And by consciousness module, I mean the physical manifestation. So we are all consciousness module in this body to
Hmm.
begin with.
Hmm.
And so the consciousness module models how awareness actually operates as a localized coherent system. Localized awareness is what we normally identify with. These are our thoughts, emotions, sensations, our sense of, I am here right now.
Hmm.
And the model says that for experience to feel continuous, that localized system has to remain stable. And when it doesn't, experience begins to fragment, memory becomes unreliable, attention scatters, and the sense of continuity weakens. We can observe those effects in situations like trauma, extreme stress, or some neurological conditions. And the consciousness module is the structure that allows awareness to remain stable while attention shifts, emotions fluctuate, and circumstances change. The consciousness module operates within what the theory calls the consciousness field, the shared perceptual continuum in which all experience takes place. Our awareness is personal and localized, but it's never completely isolated. So, Chapter 3 offers a practical model, a way to understand how awareness remains stable and what happens when that stability breaks down. In later chapters, the framework gets more technical and detailed, but in Chapter 3, the focus is on the basic mechanics of coherence.
So when we hear that term, oh, they were spiraling out of control, would that be a good description when you're not in the place that you're saying is the stable place, when you're fragmented and
I,
things would,
I would say we need continuity to remain coherent, otherwise we do feel out of place, yes.
hmm,
And of course, that's a personal interpretation as well.
right.
Yeah,
Well, just the image came up to me and the feeling of what it's like when you're not centered and everything isn't going the right way and you're not in the place you should be in. And that's when things are happening that are not in order. So once you get back in center, then things start to be more in a in a flow.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, so you describe space as something that exists between thoughts, and you refer to it as the space capsule. How should listeners understand that? And if you can describe the space capsule to our listeners.
Yes. If we watch our mind, even for a short time, we notice something interesting. Thoughts
Mhm.
don't arrive as a continuous stream. They are pauses, sometimes very brief, subtle, where awareness is present, but there is no content yet.
Mhm.
The small, tiny gap between one thought and the next is the interval where perception actually happens, organizes itself. In the theory, I call that interval the space capsule because it functions like a container. It has a beginning and an end, and within it, experience takes shape. When we recall the moments of deep attention, of stillness, of, for those who meditate, meditation, contemplation,
That was my next question. Yeah.
we notice how such moment feels spacious, even though nothing changes externally. What changes is the size of that perceptual container, the space capsule, the interval between one thought and the next. And it isn't something we need to enter, it's already there. It's a built in feature of how awareness works. Without that interval, experience would blur into one indistinguishable flow. In this model, space and time are not separate things.
Mhm.
They emerge together through the same perceptual mechanics. Space gives our experience structure, and time gives it continuity. The space capsule is the place where both become possible between thoughts. And by saying that, I'm not suggesting that physical space doesn't exist. I'm just saying that what we experience, Gail, as space, is connected to how perception is organized between one thought and the next. It's also where the spiral of perception takes shape, where awareness unfolds into continuity.
So, do you think when one meditates, I've meditated on and off for many years, and
Mhm.
with different degrees from the 20-minute meditation to 9 days of meditation. And I'm wondering, is that space that we're talking
The
about?
space capsule is extending between thoughts. Yes,
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 and so then the advanced meditator maybe has a bigger space in between the thoughts
yeah.
than, say, a beginning meditator who maybe has 5 minutes between when the next thought might occur or rise up again. That the
Mhm.
space that we're that because that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. I so that
That's the
space,
space capsule between thoughts,
so
where the
that's
perception organizes itself
uh-huh,
and there is no content yet. It's just
very,
space.
very interesting. I feel like that's like a very good description of the place you need to go to when you meditate is in between those thoughts into the space module capsule.
Into the space capsule. It's like
Yes,
a vehicle, right?
yes. I might try that on my Sunday meditation this
Yeah.
Sunday.
You go into the space capsule.
I'm
Yeah.
going to go into my capsule and I'm going to, it's going to do a little experiment and see if I
And
have more
the
space.
best thing is that you don't even have to go into it. It's already there.
It's there.
It's already there.
I guess it's acknowledging it and just accepting.
Noticing it,
Yes,
noticing.
an awareness, having an awareness.
Yeah, of it. Yeah.
Uh, let's see here. You
Speaking of
talk about
awareness. Yeah.
points of awareness. That's what we were
Yeah,
just
yeah.
going into and shaping reality. So does that mean reality itself is constantly shifting?
It's not about that the external world itself is
Hmm.
constantly changing. I'm not saying that. What I'm
Hmm.
describing is how perception recalibrates what we experience as reality. The points of awareness are the positions where attention settles on the spiral of perception. They are momentary anchors that help perception to organize experience. And each consciousness module interacts with the spiral of perception from within the space capsule, the interval between thoughts we just discussed. Wherever attention stabilizes, experience begins to organize itself around that particular point. We can see this in everyday life when our attention tends to return to similar positions again and again. Familiar worries, interests, habits, expectations. Over time, those repeated patterns start to feel solid and reliable. They become our version of what feels real to us. The spiral of perception is meant to show something precise. Experience is not chaotic, but it isn't perfectly fixed either. It is continuously recalibrated. When our points of awareness shift, experience changes accordingly. That doesn't mean the external world disappears or becomes imaginary or that our perception magically creates reality. No, it means that perception is constantly updating how events are structured, interpreted, and prioritized. Our awareness does it. And that updating is influenced by many factors: personal
Hmm.
history or belief, social context, bodily state, environment. No single factor controls the whole picture, and each consciousness module interacts with the spiral of perception, which is the frequency-based map for how experience gets organized inside the space capsule. Through that interaction, what we experience as matter, the physical domain, and time, emerge as measurable effects shaped by the pulsation of cosmic energy. And in the model, matter isn't created once. It's continuously generated by an inward moving pulse of written numerically, that is 1010. And mind you, here the meanings of ones and zeros are reversed from how they are usually used. The one represents intention, the impulse of awareness. The zero is where the appearance of solidity occurs. In the mathematics of frequencies, one is the code for perceiving, the instruction for perception, while zero represents the appearance of solidity, matter. That reversal from how they are normally used by systems showing digits of one and zero in computers, for instance, that reversal helps explain how perception produces the feeling of stable form and flowing time, even though both arise from deeper frequency dynamics underneath.
I'm trying to relate this to uh, what I experience when I have an intuition or I'm doing something shamanic and I hear a voice in my head, or there's information that comes to me and it feels like it's in between thought.
Mhm.
It's not the empty space place. I'm not sure. I'm asking.
Yes.
Um, and it's like, where am I getting that signal, or where is that? Because it's not, doesn't feel like a regular,
That's the one. That's that's
that's the number one.
that's the number one, because zero represents the appearance of matter or whatever it is in front of you, and one is the code again for the instruction for perception. For the one instructs your perception. I am going to see that computer right now.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So then that's then telling the next part how it's supposed to respond. Is that the perception is giving us the awareness of the information that's in the future, or
Right now, what we were talking about, it was about matter that it pulsates.
Mhm.
So normally, in when you see in computer systems in programming, there is a one carries the impulse, zero doesn't, etc. In this framework, in the theory of all, we reverse that because the numbers are operational.
Mm-hmm.
And one doesn't stand for solidity, one stands for instruction for perception, for for the information itself, and zero stands for the appearance of solidity of matter.
I always have to apply my own experience to be able to understand.
Right.
So that's why I have to throw those in because then I can understand what I'm receiving.
And
Um,
it's similar to what you're saying. Yes, that between thoughts, that's where the space capsule um, exists, and
mhm.
that's where the perception organizes itself. So between your thoughts, there is the decision of recalibration. There is the decision of they both inter
and
overlap in the
and
sense in
and
that sense.
the perception is working with that, and that's where it's
Yeah,
floating
yeah,
in on.
yeah.
This is putting words to things I experience. So
Yeah.
another question I have here, it's kind of a double question. I was wondering if you can explain this word emboss field,
Hmm.
and the question would be after you explain that, can you distinguish between how time is perceived in matter versus the emboss field? And if you can explain the emboss field and why was it important for you to make that distinction?
Okay. The the matter is the physical domain.
Hmm.
That's where experience is embodied. And the Emboss field is the non-physical domain. And
Oh.
it differs because it is full of information that is later carried to matter. It is sort of like a blueprint for what is going to happen in matter. And without that distinction, conversations about time can be very confusing. We tend to mix together completely different kinds of experience and then argue about which one is true. So the first step is being precise about where a particular perception of time is operating. In matter, which again is the physical domain, perception organizes itself sequentially. Experience shows up as past, present, and future. That sequencing isn't philosophical, it's a practical necessity. Without it, memory, learning, and action would fragment. On the other hand, in what the theory calls the Emboss field, which is again the non physical domain, things operate differently. Not because that domain is superior, but because it isn't constrained by physical embodiment. Perception there doesn't need to arrange experience into a linear sequence. Instead of chronology, it operates through correspondence and resonance. Time shows up as a frequency pulse, simultaneous in resonance, always present, moving inward as memory and outward as possibility at the same time. And in this view, the spiral of perception generates vibrational echoes, each one linking what's already being imprinted with what is still unfolding. So every moment carries two things again, memory and potential. What aligns becomes active, what doesn't align remains latent. Both domains serve different functions, and making that distinction prevents misunderstandings. Many spiritual or philosophical traditions, as I've noticed, talk about nonlinear time as if it should replace linear time. And in this framework, that's not the claim. Both modes are valid, just in different contexts. That also explains why people can report timeless experiences while still using clocks in everyday life. And those experiences don't cancel physical time, they simply reflect a different perceptual mode. So the distinction matters because it lets us talk about different experiences of time without forcing them into one model. and without asking to choose between them.
So would the word, like for me, I often refer to as things that are happening in the invisible because we can't see them, but I know that something is happening. Would that be sort of what emboss means? Is it part of the things that are going on around us, but they're not the things we can actually see in the physical?
You have a particular way of perceiving things, and that's why you sense that way. And that may be very well be your interpretation of the Emboss field.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
There are some people who actually can enter Emboss field with their minds, some shamans, some magicians, so-called people. Mm,
Yes.
in many tribes, the
Mm-hmm.
shamans were entering the non-physical world to find the blueprints for what was going to happen in the
Yes.
physical
And
world.
I'm wondering, is that the same place when people refer to Akashic records, that there's this information stored for for all your lifetimes? I'm wondering if this is in that same field. Because people talk about this, that there's records, but it's not actual papers, it's not actual files, but there's some sort of records of the soul that are kept in this Akashic records. I mean, that's what I think is what they mean.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
If I were to enter that, since we're talking about scientific theory today, I can't answer it
Right.
through those lenses, through that lens, the scientific lens, because you see, whatever cannot be tested or
Hmm.
repeated, it's
Right.
not scientific, and we treat it as interpretation. So I can't answer that from that point of view.
Okay. Fair enough. So let me get back to our next question then, which is your chapter 3 talks about progression and
Uh-huh.
regression of consciousness modules. Is
Right.
progression something that just happens,
Like,
or is there
yeah,
choice involved?
uh, choice is central. Progression doesn't simply happen on its own, just like the evolution of our mind doesn't happen on its own. We have to train it.
Hmm.
It happens when the consciousness module aligns with sustaining frequencies, which usually are higher frequency patterns connected to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, meaning that our thoughts, intentions, and actions affect the progression of the consciousness modules that we are. And regression, on the other hand, occurs when the alignment with such higher frequency patterns connected to our thoughts, intentions, and actions weakens. The theory doesn't treat this in moral terms of good or bad, which one's good, which one's bad. No, it is describing a structural process. Misalignment tends to reduce it. So progression isn't automatic, but shaped by repeated choices, what we attend to, how we interpret events, which directions we keep following over time. Those patterns gradually shift the overall stability of the system. And that's what chapter 3 is pointing to.
Hmm. So what are you doing now? You finished the theory, and I'm not sure how long or how long it took you to finish and publish this. And I know you're also a filmmaker. I'm not sure if that's something that are you thinking of turning this into an informative film, or what do you have listed here on what's up next?
No, not a filmmaking at this moment. But that probably would be interested with all the
Hmm.
graphics. And right now, I'm exploring how parts of the framework of the theory behave when applied to artificial systems. Not to make claims about a consciousness, but to test whether the structural models in the theory, especially around perception, sequencing, stability, still hold outside human biology. You see, AI strips away interpretation, and so it is
Hmm.
helpful for this kind of exploration. If a model only works when human belief or personal meaning is added, then it probably isn't truly structural. And structure sustains science, not interpretation. Interpretation may inspire us to for inquiry, but really structure is what sustains science. So artificial systems become a kind of testing ground. It is a way to examine where the framework holds and where it doesn't. And alongside, I'm also working on something very practical. I'm developing models that can help architects of AI systems think more clearly about how complex systems stay organized when they start to drift, contradict themselves, lose stability, or generate unreliable outputs, which basically they hallucinate. They jump to conclusions very quickly. I am also designing structured exercises and protocols for training AI systems during deep or sustained reasoning. That's where they lose focus, as a way to prepare systems for complexity without overload. That could be very helpful for users interested in a truly deep work with AI. At bottom, I'm studying how complex systems maintain order, how inputs are processed, sequenced, resolved, and stabilized under pressure. Those are fundamentally engineering questions. Any framework applied to AI has to cleanly separate structure from interpretation. If it cannot do that, it isn't safe to use. And so far, the results are very promising.
Well, I think that you and my husband David need to have a little talk together or email
Wonderful.
because he has a degree in AI back in the 80s from MIT, from the Media Lab days when he was there for many years. And now he's watching AI explode. And when he graduated back then, his mother said, "What are you going to do with AI? Who wants artificial intelligence? You're going to make money with this, you know?" But meanwhile, he has that degree from this, and he's seeing all these things occurring. He may be someone's brain you might like to pick about AI.
I would be, yeah, it would be wonderful if he could have a look at the
And yes,
theory.
and he's a
And
science-based engineer person. He's not like
yeah,
me.
yeah. And there are chapters like I think the very important, very that it might be most
Hmm.
interesting for him would be chapter 6 and chapter 7, because yeah,
Well, this
there are
is,
some topics that could be aligned with what he
I'm saying you're doing science
studied.
with what's going on current because AI is, it's everywhere taking over on it. I mean,
Mm.
we're never even sure sometimes if somebody actually wrote what you're reading or if an AI chatbot did or what.
Well, to me, because I'm a writer, it's yeah, I can recognize right away. It's the AI writes differently than a human. It can simulate human though. So yeah, in some circumstances, it's extremely wise, but it's got the
Yes.
flaws that I mentioned. So I'm working actually on repairing, helping to repair those flaws. Yeah.
So I'm getting down to the end of my list of questions here, and I'm wondering if listeners are to take one thing from chapter 3, what would you want it to be?
Chapter 3 is really about clarity. When
Mhm.
we understand how perception organizes experience, we gain orientation. And when we begin to see that time, space, and continuity are not imposed on us from the outside, but are generated through perception, something changes. Experience becomes a little less mysterious and a little more understandable. We start to recognize that many of our struggles, feeling rushed, stuck, or overwhelmed, often signal that our perception is under pressure. So, if readers finish the chapter feeling even slightly more oriented, in how they experience time and change, then it has done exactly what I hoped it would do.
Yes, wonderful. And Art, will you be, have you have any like conferences or things you're planning to go to present your book and work, or are you planning to just, I'm just wondering how you're going to get the book out there.
I've sent it to a few scientists that were interested in reading, and I'm posting regularly on LinkedIn, writing articles and doing posts twice a week. And I have my website, and there's information as well. I haven't planned anything else. I'm working on the next project with AI right now. So.
So
Yeah,
I would like to,
but I'm still exposing the work that
yes.
way that I just described. Yeah.
So I'm going to just read your website to our listeners in case anyone's not watching on YouTube and they're listening on Spotify or Apple or Google Podcasts. So it is lowercase Johannakern.com, which is your website. And I
Hmm.
believe you have more than this book that we have out now, which is your newest book just released just in 2025. Do you have any other books you could tell us about that our listeners might be interested in?
Yes, I was writing books in psychology fields, that was about subconscious shadows and how to deal with them, about how to have a wonderful relationship when you're in a relationship, and about love, romantic and not only. And I wrote about our approach, our training our perception every day through affirmations. I also wrote two biographical books in which I was experiencing which I was, in which I was documenting my own um, experiences that led me actually to write it, the theory of all. Yeah.
So
So
what's the
there are
title?
about 7 books or so that
Oh, so are there some titles you can tell us about? I know they can look it up on Amazon if they say your name, but I was wondering if you have any titles that.
Master and the Green-Eyed Hope, Secrets of Love, Affirmations for Everyone, I think. Mm, the inner, the Banner method, which is
Wow,
the method for dealing with I don't remember all the times, so I'm sorry.
that's okay. I know it's
It
late
was
in
thousands
Canada.
years ago.
I know it's also late for you.
Right now, my mind is physics,
Yes,
physics,
ye-
mathematics. But if they go to my website, johannakern.com, or find me on LinkedIn or on Amazon, there's a lot of my writings. And there are also articles on my website that I wrote, over 100 articles for international magazines, talking about
great.
subconscious relationships and how can we improve our health, our well-being, etc. Those were the fields I interested in before I noticed that I need
Wrote
to
this book. And,
that I need to write this one. Yeah.
and did you have any films that you wanted to say anything about?
There are some short films that are dealing with subject like altered states, and again, they can be found
They'll
on
find it
YouTube.
all on the
YouTube,
website.
on my website, on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and on YouTube. Wonderful. So I'd
Mm.
also like to make, before we go to our closing, I'd like to make a shout out to our dear friend who put us together, Stanley Krippner, Dr.
Ah,
Stanley Krippner, because he has matched me with people that he knows. And when we've met, like you and I, when we had our first show together, we had a lovely connection. And just for our listeners to know, Joanna and I have kept in contact, even though we've physically not
yes,
gotten to ever
yeah.
meet.
And I love Gail. I absolutely love Gail.
Yes, and I just love getting our photos and sharing our family. And without Stanley, I don't think we would have found each other. So I just want to say what a wonderful human being he is and how many amazing people he has brought into all of our lives. And at 93, him and I are going to a conference in February in Virginia.
Mm.
And uh, I'll be coming back home, but he'll be getting on a train with his assistant and going off to New York to visit people. And I can't keep up with him because he's such an active man. So I
Yes.
just want to say, Stanley, you inspire us all, and thank you for bringing
Yes,
Joanna to my life.
and thank you for writing the foreword for the theory of all. During writing of the theory, I was constantly in contact with Stanley, and he was giving me wonderful, wonderful feedback on some of
Yes.
the chapters. And he's a blessing to many people. He is a man that shines wisdom and big heart in all of us.
He's a very special man.
Yes,
Yes, I don't think I've ever heard him say a bad word about anyone or anything. He's like the kindest, most loving
yes.
hearted person. And you
Very
know,
supportive, very
yes,
supportive, very
very.
beautiful person.
He supports my podcast. He thinks it's the best podcast, so he always sends me people, and I
Mm.
can't thank him enough because they're much wonderful shows have come because of him. So this is my point where I ask you if there's anything, regardless whether it's your book or life or any words of wisdom or anything you'd want to tell our audience before we sign off.
I wouldn't have words of wisdom. I don't consider myself very wise, just very
Oh,
observant. So, uh, I'm sorry, it's not false humility. But what I would like for people is to perhaps remember how important is what we feel between thoughts,
hmm
how we start looking at who we are, where we are going as humanity as a whole. I believe that the understanding of that all is a frequency and it aligns with another frequency, and we are all in it together, as I like to say. I think that is a very important thing to remember, to support each other, to cherish the wisdom of the person in front of us, and to remember that in the big consciousness field, we are not isolated.
Well, I think that is words of wisdom, and I find you a wise woman, and I love our
Um,
interactions. So I want to thank you so much for being here today. I want to encourage people to go to your website, find your recent book and the other books that you have.
the
And
post on LinkedIn for those who are seriously interested in science, yeah.
yes, and the people interested in science to check that out. And I want to thank all you listeners for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. I want to thank my son for producing the show, and my daughter for posting the show, and my husband for writing our descriptions. And I want to thank all of you for being there. I think we're almost on 5 years. It might be I think we're entering our fifth year now of podcasts.
Mm.
So I like having it.
Congratulations,
Yes,
congratulations.
it's very exciting. And I want to tell our listeners to remember, share your stories because stories can heal. And have a very, very wonderful week. And we want to thank Joanna for joining us here today.
May I thank you, viewers,
Okay.
as well? I would like to thank you for spending this, I think it's an hour with us,
Yes, we've been together
and
now.
for listening to what we were discussing here. And please watch Gail's channel. It's absolutely wonderful, and wonderful people are coming here, and I love it. I love watching it myself.
Uh,
Thank you, Gail, and thank you, everyone.
thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, everyone. Bye.